Hey there. So my name is Phil, and I thought it might be useful for me to talk a little bit about my backstory. Maybe talk a bit about this channel, why this channel exists, where I hope to take it. A little bit of a personal share, I guess. We start YouTube channels, I think, and we don't necessarily tell people why or what the motivation behind it was. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity just to sit here in my studio and just share a few thoughts around that. First of all, if I've got something on my head here, please try and ignore it, these grooves. I've just been to the osteopath and I was sitting, on the bench bed thing where there's a hole cut out, and so those marks still remain. But I thought, hey, this is real, so I'm gonna record something real. So maybe a little bit of backstory. I started out life as a designer. Graphic designer, actually. I live in Southeast London, and I've always been interested in design of some sort, creativity of some sort. I pursued that angle when I was at school. One, because I was told I was absolutely useless at maths by some overzealous teacher. But two, because I used to love creativity. And so in my mind, I'm like, right, okay. So if I'm rubbish at maths, if I'm useless at maths, I'm gonna take that route instead. So that's what I did, and I ended up being a graphic designer. And the graphic design world was fantastic. We're creative, wonderful, exciting, all sorts of amazing things, particularly because it coincided with the launch of the internet. So this was in the 90s. And this was in a time when people would come to us and say, we want a website. I was like, well, why do you want a website? It's like, well, don't know, because everyone's got one. It's going to be great. We need one. I used to push pixels, as we used to call it. I used to create websites in Photoshop, and it was fun. Really good times. I used to work for a small design agency back then, web design company. And it was great fun. It was fantastic. And I got to express myself fully in terms of creating the designs for the websites and passing it over to the techies who would cut it up and then turn it into websites. Brilliant times. And it got to the point where I was stressed and overwhelmed because that company was subsequently bought by another company, and it became the digital wing of that company. Totally cool, that's what happens. But it put me in a position where I started to think, well, where do I want to go from here? Because I've been a graphic designer for so long now, or a web designer for so long, I just don't know where to go next, because I'm not necessarily feeling it anymore. Been doing it for a long time. I think it was 18 years I was a graphic designer, web designer. So I sought out a coach, and I got to a point where I was just like, I'm not entirely sure where I want to point myself now. You know the way where it's like, is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? I'm not sure if I want to take this any further. Where else could I go? So I found a coach. And at the time, 2009, 2010, no one knew what a coach was apart from being a tennis coach. If you were a tennis coach or a football coach, but a life coach, what the hell is that? You couldn't say life coach without going, life coach, really? And what do you know about my life? So I trained to be a coach. I trained to be a life coach back in 2009. And it was a great life. I had a wonderful experience, a wonderful bunch of years. I was a coach from, I would say, 2009, 2010, all the way through to around about 3 or 4 years ago, actually, around the pandemic time when I stopped. And I worked with tons and tons of clients around confidence, around building their brand, around getting clarity, around building their business, like really figuring out their niche, really figuring out who they are here to be in service of. And it was a deeply fulfilling process. Only I got to the stage where I realized that my creativity had been parked. I'd put that into the background, and I hadn't been doing anything creative when it comes to design or photography. This is where we move into the photography realm, because I'd always been fascinated by photography. And I did photography at school back in the days of A-levels, if you remember A-levels. And I failed my photography A-level with quite a bad mark. I think it was probably ungraded. They didn't even put a letter on it. It was like a U for ungraded. And so that doesn't bode well, does it? But the thing is, it was all manual then. It was all film, and we had to process our own. I don't even know the terminology. We had to process our own negatives and put our own. I don't even know why I'm trying. Basically, I did not enjoy it, being in the dark rooms and doing the enlarges and stuff. So I kind of pushed photography to one side, but then I got my first digital camera, digital SLR, which was quite a chunky beast because it was one of the ones that was a DSLR, digital SLR. So it was pre mirrorless. So these guys were chunky. They were chunky beasts, and I absolutely loved it. So I went to China on a trip with a friend, and I remember taking this camera, and the photos that I got out of it blew my mind. They were just like, these are good. This is amazing. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the connection that I'm having, taking pictures of people in this incredible alien land. It was just like China back then was just mind-blowing. It was, just unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And I enjoyed this because it had the real-time feedback on the screen on the back. I take the photographs and they had real-time feedback. I could see the image and I was like, wow, that's amazing, right? Brighten it up a bit, reframe, bang. And suddenly I got my creativity back again. I'm buzzing now when I talk about it. I had this incredible creativity, that surge that came out of being able to naturally see the images on screen instantly. And then coming forwards, like talking about my coaching, what I started to do was I was loving working with people to get them clarity, to have them really tap into their ultimate potential. I was absolutely loving it. It was brilliant. That was the best part of coaching. Like I would work with someone who was doing something purposeful in the world. So my niche was very much about purpose-driven people. And I was helping those purpose-driven people truly understand the change that they could bring to the world. What I was noticing was like, I really want to take some photographs of this person because actually there's something here magical that they're not seeing about themselves. And so I introduced my camera into some of the sessions. And I thought, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to take some pictures of you, with full permission, of course. And I did. And because we're in such a connected space, there was a huge trust between us. And the images that were coming out were just really moving. There was something about them that entered my heart. It got into my heart and I was like, this is special. There's something very, very special here. This was some hybrid that I wasn't necessarily aware of. And I started doing it more and more. I started to bring my camera more and more to sessions. I started to take my clients out for walks in parks in London, and we started to walk and talk, and I started to take photos of them as we walked and talked. And I would share those images with them. It wasn't part of the coaching necessarily, but I would share those images with them at the end of a session and say, look here, look, this is you. How amazing do you look? How incredible. And the look on people's faces was magical. It was like alchemy. And I'm smiling now as I talk about it. I got such a buzz from it. I didn't know where it sat because I was taking these photographs of these founders, these creators, these coaches, and I was coaching with them as well to help them fully own their impact. And I was taking these incredible photos of them. I say incredible because it's them, not because of my technical abilities, but I was capturing something very special in those people. And so now I'm at a point where I do photography full time, and I have two wings to my company, if you like, Luminous Lives. And the first wing is my story-driven brand photography. The other wing on the other side is it's this YouTube channel. And this YouTube channel, I really want to use to explore my street portraits. Now, street portraits was something that I stepped into sporadically on occasion years ago. I didn't jump fully into it because I was incredibly nervous of what people would say if I asked them for a street portrait. I was one of those photographers who was like a street photographer who was subversively taking pictures, shooting from the hip. And sometimes on occasion getting a photo that I'd look at and go, oh, that's cool, that's interesting. What was it about that photo I really loved? Well, it had a human in it who was connecting with me in some way, or connecting with the camera. And that to me was a really interesting photo. And I said to myself, okay, if I was being really brave, what would I do? If I was really stepping into pursuing my passion, what would I really do? And I landed on, I would do street portraits. I would get out there regularly. I would meet people regularly. I would get over myself. I would take pictures of these incredible people and I would mirror it back to them on the back of the screen of my camera. And I would make these little videos about the interactions. And I would connect with those people, and I would send them those images and I would show them how magnificent they looked. That's what I've been doing, and I've been doing that for the last year and a half now. I do it in London. It's a passion project that has become something bigger, and I want it to become even bigger. Like, I know there are people doing street portraits around the world. There are some fantastic YouTube channels of people doing street portraits. I want this channel to be a place where I share my interactions with the incredible people that I meet on the streets. But I want to share the interactions that I have with them as well. So I have a camera, chest-mounted camera, that I capture the interactions as well. And it's taken me a bit of time to get it right, you know, because that's been a bit it's been a bit tricky to get it right, because I've been blocking the view with my camera. Anyway, too much information. But I want this channel to be that. I want to share these incredible human beings that I meet on a regular basis in London and beyond on this channel. I want you to come along on the ride with me. I really want this to be a channel where we come and we celebrate these individuals that I meet on the streets. I also want to create videos on this channel moving forwards on not only this point of view footage or POV footage of me interacting with these people. I want to teach you how to do it as well. I want to create these videos so that you can pick up a camera, or you can just use your phone and you can meet these strangers that you've been wanting to take pictures of because you think they look particularly cool, or there's something about them you want them to see about themselves. Like, I want to teach you how to do that, because it's more about the connection. It's more about intention, connection, right energy, how to communicate, how to ask, how to not take it personally. All of these things I want to teach you on this channel, because these are things I've learned along the way, and I'm learning all the time as well. I'm no expert at this. I'm incredibly passionate about it, but I want to become an expert so that I can help you become experts as well. So please subscribe to this channel if you feel like all that long story that I've just told you lands. If the subject interests you, I want to share that with you. So thank you for listening to me speak in this kind of free-form way. I thought it'd be interesting to just share a bit of backstory in a very non-produced way. Here's me showing up. Here's me sharing. If that's something that you want to join me on, please subscribe. And I can't wait for the journey ahead. It's going to be amazing. Trust me, when you do your first street portrait, it is mind-blowing.